and welcome back to English Lessons with Stephanie. This is Speaking Lesson 6. In today's lesson, we'll start with a little bit of pronunciation. We'll talk about how to pronounce suffixes, word endings. Then we'll talk about opposites, the word weird, stress, and finally we'll end by connecting to the reading by talking about neediness and making predictions. It's good to learn to pronounce these common suffixes because it will help your pronunciation with so many words. So to start, let's look at the suffix able, which is pronounced able. So remember that able is a suffix that we put on a word that means able to do something. So when you look at these words here, doable, readable, manageable, knowing how to pronounce able will make the word easier to pronounce. Otherwise, you might think we should say doable, readable, manageable, but it's able. Doable, readable, manageable. Next, we have ible. Ible has the same meaning as able, but it's just spelled and pronounced slightly differently. So look at these next words and guess, how would you pronounce them? You would say legible, edible, tangible. Next, we have the suffix less. Even though less is spelled L-E-S-S, it's pronounced less, meaningless, endless, thankless. Next, we have the suffix ness, which is pronounced nis, happiness, sadness, loneliness. Next, we have the suffixes tion and sion, which are pronounced shin. And when you have words that end with this suffix, the accent is usually on the syllable right before the ending. So transportation, nation, communication, vacation, transition, correction, permission. In the next column, we have the ending ment, pronounced mint, management, arrangement, payment, ity, ity, city, clarity, hilarity, prosperity. This usually has the accent on the syllable before the ending also. Ify is ify, diversify, magnify, terrify, horrify. So let's talk. Just go through this list and practice pronouncing all these words. And next time you open a book or read an article, look for these common word endings, because now you'll be able to see how they're pronounced. Okay, now we'll move on to talking about opposites. So opposites was one of our vocabulary words this week. It means the completely different form of something. So when we use opposite as a noun, like we're going to do in this exercise, we say the opposite of. So we put the in front of it plus of afterwards. So for example, day is the opposite of night. So here are some questions that I'd like you to answer in complete sentences. What is the opposite of strong? So you would say the opposite of strong is. What is the opposite of dark? What is the opposite of late? What is the opposite of expensive? What is the opposite of hardworking? And what is the opposite of friendly? So let's talk. Pause the video, answer these questions in complete sentences, and then we'll go over the answers on the next page. So here are the answers. The opposite of strong is weak or feeble or vulnerable. The opposite of dark is bright or light. The opposite of late is early. The opposite of expensive is inexpensive or cheap. The opposite of hardworking is lazy. And the opposite of friendly is unfriendly or aloof. Next, let's talk about how we can use the word weird. So remember, weird is an adjective that means strange or unusual. And weird is a very common American English adjective especially. So let's just start by talking about this first question. What do you think is weird about you or your family or your country? So to answer this question, you would say it's weird that, followed by a subject and a verb. So for example, I could say it's weird that many Americans never leave the country. Or about me, I could say it's weird that I don't speak a Chinese language. So I speak English, Spanish, and French, but I don't speak Mandarin or Cantonese, even though I'm Chinese American. And when you answer this question, we're just showing you that you would follow that with a subject and a verb. And the subject and verb can be in the present tense or the past tense or even the future tense. Like you could say it's weird that it rained yesterday, or it's weird that it will rain tomorrow, or it's weird that it's raining right now. The important part is that we just use a subject and verb to follow. Our second question says, describe something that weirds you out. So here we're using the phrasal verb weird out. So that means that we think something is strange. So to do this, we would start the sentence by saying a noun or an ing verb, then weirds me out. So for example, you could say, cats weird me out. So if you want to use a plural verb, we would need to change weirds to weird. Or if we use an ing verb, it just remains weirds because it's seen as a singular subject. So I'd say cats weird me out, or this cat weirds me out, or seeing cats weirds me out. I don't really think cats are weird, but I can't think of a better example right now. Okay, so let's talk. Pause the video, answer these questions, give some examples using the word weird and weird out as a verb, and then unpause the video and move on. Our next conversation piece is stress. So we're going to answer the question, what stresses you out? And just like weirds you out, this means what causes you stress. And remember that stress out is a phrasal verb that's similar to weird out. So it's separable, and it means that something causes you stress. Other ways to ask the same question would be, what causes you stress, or what do you find stressful, and why? So again, we would say non-count. Again, to answer this question, we would start with a non-count noun or an ing verb, and then say stresses me out. Or if we use a plural noun, it would be stress me out. So I could say, cooking dinner for many people stresses me out. So cooking would be our ing verb, so I would use stresses me out. And then, or this pandemic stresses me out. And not sleeping enough stresses me out. Or to use the second form, is stressful, it would be the same. Cooking dinner is stressful. Cooking dinner for many people is stressful. Or this pandemic is stressful. So answer these questions. Make sure you're using the correct verb to go with your nouns, your subject, your sentence subjects. And give some details. Tell us why these things are stressful. So let's talk. Pause the video. And when you're finished, unpause the video and move on. Okay, next we're going to think about some things we read about in our reading lesson this week. So we're going to talk about neediness. When a person frequently needs other people's attention or help, we call that person needy. In this class's reading, Chris changes from an independent person to one who's very needy. Describe how he became needy. So you're going to think about the reading this week and tell us how Chris became needy. Now that question means, what did he do that made him needy? So why do we say suddenly that he is needy? Secondly, do you know any needy people? How are they needy? And how does their neediness make you feel? So I can answer this question. My baby is very needy, and that's just because she's a baby. She can't do anything for herself. So she needs me to feed her, and she needs me to change her, and she needs me to move from place to place, and she needs me all the time. And that neediness sometimes makes me crazy, but in general, I don't mind because she's my baby. So it's not a big deal. Neediness in friends is not as great. We don't typically want our friends to need our help all the time because they're not babies. Or they shouldn't be babies. Okay, lastly, we all need our friends sometimes. Describe a time you needed a friend or a time that a friend needed you. Here we can practice using our past tense verbs, if you know how to use your past tense verbs correctly. Or if you don't know how to use past tense verbs, you can just talk in general about needing a friend. When I was living in San Francisco, I was fighting with my boyfriend, who I lived with. And one night we got into a really big fight. and I needed to leave. So I called my friend Kareem, and he came and he talked to me and made me feel a lot better. So the next day, I was able to talk to my boyfriend and we made up. We stopped fighting, and now he's my husband. Okay, so let's talk. Pause the video, answer these questions, try to give as much detail as you can, and then let's unpause the video and continue. Finally, one more reading connection question, predicting. So what do you think will happen in part 2 of Losing Chris? And give reasons to explain your predictions. So to answer this question, we're going to need to use the future tense. You could just use the simple future tense, which is will plus the verb. So you could say, I think that this will happen. I think that Chris will call her. Or you can start the sentence with, I predict that. Or maybe plus a subject verb. Maybe she will visit him. Or maybe Chris will call her. And refer back to the reading again. What specific things in the reading are making you think that these things will happen? Let's talk, pause the video, answer these questions, and then we'll be finished. So that's it for today. Keep practicing. It will get easier. Talk to yourself, talk to your friends, talk to anyone, and just keep practicing. Great work today, and we'll see you for class 7, where we'll do part 2 of Losing Chris.